Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 280 is almost here, and this is an incredible card on paper, one of the best fight cards on paper that the UFC has ever put on. It is just stacked from top to bottom with incredible fights. And on the main card, we have an amazing lightweight matchup. Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this amazing lightweight matchup. And I've already done a bunch of predictions for UFC 280. I will link them down in the description, and I'll have more coming, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And I have a bunch of UFC 280 content. I will link the entire UFC 280 playlist down in the description so you can find every video I made on UFC 280. So when you look at Dariush versus Gamrot, this is an incredible fight for multiple reasons. First off, this is a high-level fight. I mean, both of these guys are elite-level lightweights, one of the best divisions in all of the UFC. And then you look at the circumstances surrounding this fight. I believe outside of Alexander Volkanovski, who might move up and challenge to try to earn a second belt against the winner of Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, I believe the winner of Dariush versus Gamrot should be next in line. I believe this should be a #1 contender fight. And honestly, I've said it before, I think the UFC maybe should have done this as a main event of a fight night card because it's a #1 contender fight. I feel like it should be 5 rounds. But nonetheless, I am super excited for this. And this is Gamrot's biggest test of his entire career. I know he fought Sarukian, who's an elite-level fighter, but Beneil Dariush is a veteran in the UFC. He's been around forever. He's on a long win streak. And right now, if he goes out there, if Gamrot goes out there and gets a statement win against a guy like Dariush, he stakes his claim to a lightweight title shot. And for Dariush, he's getting up there in age. He's 33 years old, not particularly old, but in the lightweight division, when you have nothing but killers making their way up, outside of the top 10, you have guys like Sarukian, or I think he's ranked number 10 right now. You have guys like Damir Ismagulov, Jalen Turner, Guram Kutateladze, who's not even ranked in the top 15. There's nothing but savages coming up in the lightweight division. If Beneil loses here, it's going to be hard to regain the momentum he currently has on this long win streak. But shout out to Beneil Dariush. There's too many fighters like Wonderboy in the welterweight division. Justin Gaethje right now turning down a fight with Rafael Fiziev or saying, I'm not going to be a stepping stone. And Beneil Dariush gets offered this prospect fight against a hot prospect like Mateusz Gamrot, and he accepts it anyway, even though he's on a long win streak. He could have cried and said, I already have a claim to a lightweight title shot, or I want a opponent who's ranked ahead of me, but he did not. He accepted a fight with a dangerous opponent like Mateusz Gamrot. So shout out to Dariush. You look at the tail of the tape for this fight. Dariush is 21-4. Gamrot is 21-1. Dariush is ranked number 6. Gamrot is ranked number 9 in the UFC official rankings. Dariush is 33. Gamrot is 31. They are both 5'10". Dariush has a 72-inch reach, and Gamrot has a 70.5-inch reach. So a very slight reach advantage for Mateusz Gamrot. You look at Mateusz Gamrot, he has 21 pro MMA wins, 7 by knockout, 5 by submission, 9 by decision. And honestly, he comes into this fight on a 4-fight win streak, but he should come into this fight on a 22-fight win streak, or maybe a 1-fight losing streak, but we'll talk about that in a second. The only loss on his pro MMA resume is against Guram Kutateladze back in October of 2020, where he lost via split decision. I thought this was a win for Gamrot. I thought he should have won this fight. Unfortunately, he doesn't get on the scorecards, but even Guram Kutateladze said in his post-fight interview, I thought that Gamrot won this fight. Gamrot's most recent fight is against Arman Sarukian, June of this year. I thought Gamrot lost this fight. This was a very close competitive fight. I thought Sarukian got rounds 1, 2, and 4. The 4th round was razor close, but Sarukian dropped him with, I think it was a spinning back fist. So that's why I gave the round to Sarukian. But no matter what, it wasn't a robbery. This was a high-level performance by both guys. Gamrot showed incredible scrambles in this fight. He showed incredible transitions. He showed incredible grappling. I mean, Gamrot looked incredible against a high-level guy like Arman Sarukian. Even though I thought he lost, It was an incredible performance. The fight before that was against Carlos Diego Ferreira. In this fight, he was able to get Carlos Diego Ferreira down and TKO him in the second round. It was a weird spot where he took him down, kind of had his back, but Gamrot was in a standing position, and then he kneed him to the ribs, and then I think it was a rib injury from Carlos Diego Ferreira, and he could not continue. The fight before that was his most impressive performance. The opponent kind of iffy. Jeremy Stephens out of his prime at that point. I never thought Stephens was that good. But the way that Gamrot went out there and beat him, he immediately took him down and then immediately got the Kimura. He finished him like a minute and a half into the first round. And then before that, he had a KO win over Scott Holtzman, which is an opponent in common with Beneil Dariush. And then before that was his UFC debut that I already talked about. You look at Beneil Dariush, he has 21 pro MMA wins. Of those wins, he has 5 by knockout, 8 by submission, and 8 by decision. So you see both guys, when they do win, they win by a variety of different attacks. He comes into this fight on a 7-fight win streak. I mean, an absolute incredible long win streak for the lightweight division, regardless of opponents. But he hasn't fought since UFC 262 back in May of 2021 and against Tony Ferguson. And I know a lot of people are, Tony Ferguson, the way he looked against Nate Diaz or the way he looked against Chandler, a lot of people are talking about how washed up he is. At this point in time, I still think Tony Ferguson was a quality win. Dariush went out there and just out-grappled him for 3 rounds. He didn't finish him. He had a nasty knee bar at one point, or a heel hook, I think it was. Tony refused to tap just like Tony does. And, Dariush just out-grappled him for 3 rounds. And this was still a solid Tony Ferguson. The fight before that against Carlos Diego Ferreira, he won by split decision. I thought that it should have been a unanimous decision. I mean, Dariush pretty much out-grappled him the whole fight. Carlos Diego Ferreira had some scrambles. He was able to get back to his feet, but he just kept getting taken down over and over and over again. So solid performance then, and then a KO win over Scott Holtzman as well. So both guys fought Carlos Diego Ferreira as well as Scott Holtzman, and they both have wins over those. The fight before that against Drakkar Klose back at UFC 248, going back to March of 2020. This was an incredible fight. Beneil Dariush wins the first round, landing the better shots, eventually gets the back of Drakkar Klose, dominates him, is in like a standing back mount position. Drakkar Klose survives the round as Dariush is looking for a rear naked choke. But then in the second round, Drakkar Klose comes out super aggressive, starts winging right hands, rocks Dariush, starts getting over aggressive, and then Beneil Dariush rocks Drakkar Klose and then starts walking him down and finishes him up against the fence. It was a nice win for Beneil Dariush and an absolute brutal knockout. Then before that, you're getting back to a Drew Dober win via submission and a win over Thiago Moises. But you're getting back to 2019 and 2018. His last loss was via KO to Alexander Hernandez all the way back in March of 2018. But how much does that really mean at this point? That was so long ago, 4 years ago against Alexander Hernandez. Beneil Dariush has evolved a lot since then. So when I look at this fight, I see two guys with very similar skill sets. If I had to give the striking advantage, I'd give the slight striking advantage to Beneil Dariush. If I had to see a grappling advantage, I would give the grappling advantage to Mateusz Gamrot. This is a very tough fight to pick. And initially, when I looked at this fight and I heard the fight announcement, I leaned Beneil Dariush, just more experience, fought better guys. And I just thought Beneil Dariush, I thought he was highly underrated, and I thought a lot of people were going to pick Gamrot because he's an up-and-coming killer, and I leaned Beneil Dariush. But when I went back and watched some of the tape, and then there's some X factors, which I'm going to talk about in a second, I kind of started leaning Mateusz Gamrot, and I am going to go with Mateusz Gamrot via decision. There's a lot of factors that come into this. I think this is going to be a very gritty fight. But basically, you take all their skill sets. I think they're very evenly skilled, and I think this is a very even matchup. I just think Mateusz Gamrot is, he's just younger. I think he's an absolute killer. And I think you look at Beneil Dariush, he's coming off an injury. I think he broke his ankle or broke his leg. He was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev early this year, in February of this year. So he's coming off an injury. He hasn't fought in a year and a half. And I just think every X factor is stacked against Beneil Dariush. And it's hard for me to pick him. Gamrot is an absolute savage. And I think Gamrot has that grappling advantage. And a lot of the time, Dariush's striking is predicated on his threat of his grappling. He landed good shots against Tony Ferguson because Tony Ferguson was worried about the grappling. He landed good shots against Drakkar Klose because Drakkar Klose was worried about the grappling, and Drakkar Klose was landing some good shots on him. So I don't think Dariush's striking is all that great. I think he has a slight advantage. I think he has a lot better kicks than Gamrot. And Gamrot, we saw in the Sarukian fight, ate a lot of body kicks and a lot of leg kicks as well. And I think Dariush in this fight is going to perform very well, and I think this is going to be one of those razor close decisions. And I think what's going to win this fight for Mateusz Gamrot is just going to be, control. I think he's going to push Dariush up against the fence. I think he's going to control Dariush. I think he's going to be able to get him down, and I think that Gamrot is going to win the fight that way. I don't see him finishing Dariush. I don't see Dariush finishing him. I think regardless of who wins, this is probably via decision. But, you look at Dariush, he has been KO'd 3 times in the past. I thought about picking Gamrot by KO, but Gamrot's hands aren't particularly deadly. I still think he leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to his hands. If he did finish Beneil Dariush via KO, I think it would be like a ground and pound TKO. But I think Gamrot wins via decision. I think he uses his grappling. He uses his control. Beneil Dariush is a very good grappler. But I think Mateusz Gamrot is just next level, and I think he has an advantage. I think Dariush is going to be able to fend some of them off early like Sarukian was able to, but as the second and third round go on and Dariush starts to get worn down, I think Gamrot's going to have more success, and it's going to lead to him winning those rounds. And I think it's going to be a very competitive fight, but Gamrot's going to win via decision. And I'm really curious to see how Dariush looks after this long layoff, and that's exactly why I couldn't pick him. Long layoff. The fact he's coming off an injury, Mateusz Gamrot's coming fresh off a victory in June against Sarukian. He looked better than ever in that fight, even though I thought he lost against Sarukian. And I just think he gets the job done against Beneil Dariush. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think it's going to be a close fight, maybe even a controversial decision. I'm going to say 29-28 Mateusz Gamrot. I think Beneil Dariush is going to win, or maybe the first round with some body kicks, with some leg kicks. And I think, Gamrot's going to press him up against the fence, but it's not going to be enough damage to warrant him winning the round. And then I think the second and third round, I think Gamrot's going to get more control time and win in those rounds and start to get Dariush down and soften him up with a little bit of ground and pound. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who's going to win? Don't forget to check out my UFC 280 predictions. I got the link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like the video, and I will see you in the next video.